So the lines are open on 011-542-2186, so you can tweet at ANN7TV or at I am Cindy Mabi. Joining us live in studios, Professor Sipho Siebe, political analyst. We have Sfiso Mahlango, ANN7 resident political analyst, and we also joined on the line by Nqutu Hlabisa from the IFP provincial spokesperson. Good evening to you, gentlemen, and thanks so much for joining us. There seems to be a sense of this is a rude awakening for the ANC, which then supports the call that the Jacob Zuma leadership is under question. I'll start with you, Sfiso, your thoughts.
Good evening and happy Africa Day to you.
Happy Africa Day to you too.
I think the reality of a political dispensation is between 5 and 10 years. And in South Africa, we vote every 5 years. And we call it between 5 and 10 years because it works like this. It is only after 5 years that you can change your mind. And then in 10 years, the vote consensus changes. And so Nquthu has always been a stronghold of the IFP. And if IFP had one breakaway in its lifetime, which was Ms. Magwaza Msibi, the leader of NFP. And so she did not campaign. She's been ill for a very long time. And she could not be seen publicly. So the people who had identified Ms. Magwaza Msibi as their leader have now come back to the IFP to say this was the stronghold, and they've then merged with the ANC for that matter. The changes that we see are 1 or 2 seats, of a margin. The ANC has received more PR seats than the IFP, however, in these elections. But the IFP has, by a majority, taken the vote because it is a strong force in Nquthu. It's always been. The thing about an IFP cadership and fellowship is that they don't move densely. It's only after 10 years where they try and find another leader. And if they are not happy in that 5-year radius, then they come back and vote for the ANC. I don't think that this vote particularly should be placed upon the character of President Jacob Zuma or that even of the ANC. I know that many people are going to attempt that. But when considering politics, one should look at the history of the province, the history of the ward and those branches, and then study from there. It would have been a miracle, in fact, if the EFF or the DA had taken that. It was just between the IFP and the ANC, and the IFP in this case has done very well, and I think South Africa should commend them for that.
Yeah, Professor Siebe, just before we go to you, we have the ANC spokesperson in KwaZulu-Natal, Nqutu Hlabisa, and IFP provincial spokesperson, or rather that's IFP provincial spokesperson. Nquthu is the ANC KZN spokesperson. I'll start with you, Mr. Hlabisa. Suppose congratulations are in order, but you were expecting this outcome. What is it that the party did right, or what is it that you consistently do in these wards that make you successful?
Good evening, Cindy, Professor, and the colleague from the ANC. The election results that we received yesterday, we had long anticipated them. You remember, in 2016, the IFP actually won as a single party with the majority seats at Nquthu, but not a majority seat to make decisions in the council. Now, during the campaigns, we approached people and requested them that they must give us a clear mandate to rule Nquthu municipality, which people did. What we did, we just went to people, we listened to them. What exactly do they expect to someone who will genuinely take into account their issues and needs? And they know us, that when we come to people and listen to them, we actually keep what people have requested us to take note of once they put us into power. That is the key issue that made people give us more votes compared to 2016.
All right, please stay on the line. We have Mr. Nquthu, KZN ANC spokesperson. Mr. Nquthu, good evening to you. Is this a rude awakening in your view of the ANC, or was this essentially a fait accompli situation that you couldn't win?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to the viewers at home and the participants who are part of the team at the studio. Firstly, let me, on behalf of the Provincial Executive Committee of the ANC, congratulate the leadership of the IFP for a successful election victory, which they secured today when the IEC officially announced the election results. I think for us as the ANC, we knew from the beginning that we were climbing a difficult mountain, because the northern part of the province has always been, for a very long time now, a center of the IFP, where the IFP has been dominant as a political party after we defeated them in the southern part and the eastern part of the province. So we knew that we were going to a very tough contestation, but we said that we have to do everything that is possible and within our means to ensure that we push them back, and where possible we secure victory for the African National Congress. The fact that it did not happen, and the new narrative that is emerging for people who are appropriating that to the president of the ANC, or dynamics as they say, some of them internal in the organization, is really something that we would not want to identify with. We believe that we need to go back, sit down, and do our own analysis to understand what has happened to each and every VD, 116 VDs that we were contesting the elections at. Of course, at a preliminary level, what we have noticed, which I think many people who were following politics in South Africa and in our province will concede to, is the fact that the disappearance of the NFP on the scene has had a very huge impact on the ability of the African National Congress to ensure that it does not only sustain its own vote base, but also exploit the differences that existed between the IFP and the NFP. I think that is one of the preliminary observations we have made as we were looking at the result taking in today.
All right, Mr. Ntuli, please stay on the line. And Mr. Hlabisa, we have Professor Sipho Siepe in studio and Sfiso Mahlangu, resident political analyst. And I do apologize to our viewers. It's not a call-in show as previously advertised. Professor Siepe, now the narrative that Nquthu essentially had jolted already divided ANC, and this could be the preamble to 2019.
No, actually, it's nonsense, as Sfiso was also indicating, that number one, the IFP has been dominant in that for a number of years, and the ANC is correct to indicate that. But most importantly, I think we should do first things first. First, we must congratulate the manner in which all parties campaigned. You know, what it does, it shows a certain degree of maturity that we can campaign without there being a loss of blood. So that, and especially in the area that in the past was always used to having that level of internecine war. So that is one thing that says we are maturing as a democracy. Then the second thing is really that what it also shows that it is always difficult to dislodge parties where they have been there, because ultimately people begin to associate them socially, culturally, and politically and economically. And the IFP has done actually a good job in doing that. And I think it's also correct for the ANC to have congratulated them, because that in itself, it also indicates that this is a party that is willing to accept when it has lost. But what it also says, if you look at the people who were deployed in that place, those were the big guns of the ANC. You had Cyril Ramaphosa there, you had the president being there, you had Nqutu who had gone there, you had Baleka. So it is not for lack of trying. And but despite that, what it means that the ANC may need to fashion a new language to be able to win those people. As I say, they are located there, culturally they are rooted, and they cannot even imagine us voting for another party. But also, I do think that the narrative that has also been in the media has also worked in their favor to say the ANC is fighting while support the party that is having problems with itself.
Yeah, Mr. Ntuli, just on that point, the fact that the ANC has its own internal problems and that the heavyweights couldn't even persuade voters in a by-election to support the party. What do you read into that particular narrative? You
see, the local governments are very, very tricky in a sense that you know, the choice of the voter, what informs the final decision of the voter is not only the party for which they can choose, but it's also about the candidate. To what extent are they close to the candidate at their locality? What role is that candidate playing in society other than being a representative of a particular political party? Part of what we were saying today, we have to re-examine. We need to ask ourselves the question, who are these people who were candidates of the IFP in relation to the candidates of the ANC and what they do in society? How has that, if any, has contributed in one way or the other in them getting a bigger support other than our own candidates? So it would not necessarily be about a choice between the ANC and the IFP. It would equally boils down to a choice between a particular candidate made available by the ANC and the other one by the IFP. So this thing that people want to, to appropriate this outcome, the setback of the ANC, to what is happening at the national level and all of those things is really an excuse, and people who are unable to really dissect the environment we are dealing with and who have no understanding of the historical background of how the IFP has actually entrenched itself, particularly in the areas within the northern part of our province, which are dominated largely by very conservative traditional leadership, which for many years has been working closely, some of them, with the leadership of the IFP, their leader being the chief himself.
Yeah, and Mr. Hlabisa, it seems that it's a very harmonious and cordial municipality that you're running there with the ANC in the opposition, and I'm interested to know why it is in coalition governments recently. I suppose maybe it's a new phenomenon that we see this kind of conflict, resistance, and revolt, as it were. Why is it working in Nquthu?
Madam, currently there will be no coalition government as per the outcome of the results released today. The IFP will have a clear majority, but of course we will be working closely with all political parties, smaller parties as well as the ANC, because at a local government level you need to take into account the needs of every person in each and every ward. So now, it's not per se a coalition government that will be responsible in Nquthu, except in other areas where no political party had a clear majority. But precisely at Nquthu, as per the election results, the IFP will be in charge as a single party, of course, taking into account the contributions and cooperating with all political parties involved in the council.
Please stay on the line. So again, just going on this whole concern about the elective conference, we know that it's really unveiled the ugliest attributes or characteristics in people and those that are in the running. What now for the ANC, or are lessons going into 2019 if Nquthu is to be used as a case study?
Well, I think the ANC and also the NEC of the ANC is fooling itself if it believes that the ANC will run every ward in this country. That will dispute the notion and ideology of separation of powers, but also the mandate the people grant political parties in a democracy. And in a democracy, people grant a party to lead them, particularly at ward structures, at municipal structures, and then at national structures. And no one had attested that a democracy will be run by the ANC. So if the people in Nquthu feel that IFP is their leadership, then they have every right to vote them in. And I think South Africans must appreciate that. And ANC members likewise must appreciate that. If they change their minds in 2019 and beyond, that is the point of democracy, to look within ourselves and examine that we have a right to choose our leaders, particularly every 5 years. This was a by-election, and particularly in Nquthu, the IFP has always been in leadership. The fracture in the IFP was taken only by the NFP, Ms. Magwaza Msibi, but it seems that the IFP has regained clout in that matter. But the media in this country will use the ANC's loss here, or it's not just the ANC's loss here, it is the win of the IFP, because every other party that campaigned did not win, but the IFP. I don't know why the media is saying the ANC has lost, because all other parties, the DA, the EFF, also campaigned, but they did not win. It was the IFP that won. The narrative the media will paint from today is that the ANC is so fractured and the rand is gaining power. I was reading a story earlier in a newspaper online where they were saying the rand is gaining power because of Nquthu, in the NEC meeting in this weekend. They might decide to recall President Jacob Zuma. And so the media has always painted this narrative. We're going to see the striking colors of what happened in America when a certain station, a certain media house painted Hillary Clinton as the winner, even before, you know, the ballots were counted. And it was another story when the numbers were counted. I think South Africans must really appreciate that it has been a peaceful campaign and that the people have exercised their democratic right. On the way to 2019, South Africans will consider which party they want. It is not centralized upon President Jacob Zuma. President Jacob Zuma is leaving the ANC. He will not stand for a third term. There will be another leader within the ANC, and democracy will continue. I think the idea that we've got to teach ourselves in this country, particularly in this year, is that there will be a democracy post Jacob Zuma.
And also looking at the ANC, or whether it needs to augment its strategy, the door-to-door and being, you know, at grassroots and leveraging on the popularity of President Zuma, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, sending the heavyweights, not all of that, not yielding the desired results. Do you think they need to augment their strategy going forward, especially with the hotly contested
Well, I think
2019?
the comment made by the ANC leader there is actually correct, that local elections are, one must look at different dynamics. And we've seen also the ANC losing to some of its members who became independent. And they lost because those people are rooted in their setting. So it is not so much the policies that those people were putting that were superior to the ANC, but it's the belief that the people have, because those are people who are closer. So if you have somebody who they believe in, it doesn't matter who that person is, whether it's IFP, whether it's ANC, and all the people will say, this person we do know, and this person would be able to address our concerns. So the by-elections do not necessarily always indicate the superiority of a party. But when it comes to Nquthu, what is very clear is that the IFP has always been dominant there. So there are no surprises. But it's also very important what Sfiso is saying, that the IFP has won and all other parties have lost. So we cannot start trying to attribute a blame on one party. The point is that was a Himalaya to climb, and parties have not been able to do that. And as I said, for me, it is that we've had the serious contestation, and we had the ANC deploying its best, but what it shows is that people believe in the people that they know. And in this case, the members of the IFP were there are known, and they have a history, they are culturally rooted and socially rooted, and they were chosen.
All right, let's just get final comments from Mr. Hlabisa from the IFP in terms of the mandate now that you've received from your supporters, and what communities in Nquthu can expect in terms of service delivery. We've seen all sorts of protests flare up around the country, and some stability is needed.
Madam, you will notice that in the municipalities that are controlled by the IFP, we are not experiencing much the issues of protest. We know, like in Umzinyati, because the victory for the IFP will make the IFP rule in Nquthu as well as Umzinyati district municipality. In the past 2 weeks, there has been a protest around the issue of water at Msinga municipality. And Msinga belongs under Umzinyati, and Umzinyati, its core competence is water service delivery. So the issue of water is one of the key issues that we'll have to attend once the inauguration of the district has been done after the 6th of June, and then the issues that concern the local municipality of Nquthu, the access road issues, physical infrastructure, electricity, the issue of housing subsidy, and attending issues that affect the younger people on issues of job creation, as well as the local economic development for people who are not carrying job opportunities within the area will be our focus areas. I also wanted to appreciate the spirit in which all political parties involved demonstrated throughout the campaigning period as well as yesterday, and really that is recommended for the growth of our political parties as well as democracy, that whenever we have elections, let us allow people to exercise their right to choose the person whom they believe is the best to champion their needs.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Sibonge kakhulu Babu Velinkosi Hlabisa, IFP provincial spokesperson. And last word from Mr. Mdumiseni Ntuli, KZN ANC spokesperson. What will the party do differently in that municipality?
Well, first and foremost, we would expect, and councillors of the ANC are going to be assuming the responsibilities in the opposition benches in that municipality, understand very well that there's an obligation to discharge their responsibilities effectively and efficiently as the opposition party. But that they also have to ensure that the services that our people must receive them, irrespective of whether the ANC is in government or is the IFP. The provincial government, on the other hand, which is led by the ANC, will also continue to provide services to the people of Nqutu as effectively, as efficiently as it has been doing. Nothing is going to impact or deter the provincial government led by the ANC to service the people of Nqutu in a manner that it does to all other areas where the ANC is not in government. Of course, as a party, we're going to be convening meetings over the next few days to analyze the outcome of the elections at each and every VT in all 116 VT of Nqutu, to reflect on the circumstances and the factors that might have influenced the outcomes in a particular way. We believe that there is no common problem throughout the 116 VTs. Each case will be treated according to its merit, and the ANC has a mission to ensure that in the next 10 years, we govern the entirety of the province in terms of leading all municipalities in our province. That mission is still going to be pursued by the ANC, and it was that mission and that objective which led to us bringing and unleashing the best amongst our leaders to come to the campaign at Nqutu. It's precisely because of that agenda, and that agenda would not be deterred by the outcome of today.
All right, we're going to leave it there. Thanks indeed for your participation. Sfiso Mahlangu, resident political analyst, as always much appreciated. Professor Sipho Siepe, as well as our guests on the phone line. We'll take a quick ad break. Do stay with Africa News Network for the latest news update just after this.